rolling. Hello, I'm Hannah Judson, and this is the Hannah Judson Beat. My guest today is Freda Smith. You probably know her as a drummer, a singer, an author, journalist, teacher. There are other things you do too, and hopefully today we can learn a little bit more about the whole picture. You're active in so many different things. But before we dive in, how are you?
Thanks for asking. I'm doing all right on a snowy morning in Evanston, Illinois. Just kind of, I have this feeling right now of trying to pace myself for a long winter, and just hunkering down a little bit. Work has been a really big part of that. But also it's this thing of just being in the mindset of not expecting anything major to change, like as far as the pandemic or anything like that. So just kind of trying to settle in for the long winter a bit.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You mentioned being in Evanston, Illinois, which is just north of Chicago, on the lake. I'm forgetting the name of the lake. I lived in Chicago for
Lake Michigan.
Chicago for 14 years, Lake Michigan. But the winters in Chicago are particular because of the lake and the wind and the cold and the intensity, and then the warmth of inside houses and inside venues and the things that go on all winter long. It's sort of at its survival. So what's it like without really being able to go out to restaurants and clubs and venues?
I miss that. I mean, because there is a kind of coziness to Chicago venues in the winter, places like Shuba's or the Hideout.
Totally.
And I miss that feeling of community and coziness. It does help you get through the winter. In a way, I'm kind of like trying to replicate that feeling at home of just like being cozy, being creative, and finding alternative ways to still maintain a sense of connection and community. But it's challenging. It's hard. And I mean, the winter is always hard. So it's like everyone in Chicago has their strategies and ways to get through the winter. So I guess it's just tweaking the strategies given the circumstances. So I mean, I've just been reading like crazy, and I'm really enjoying that. And It's not a bad time to be writing, doing research. I even started practicing my drums again. Just for some warmth and energy. So yeah, it's just pivoting to find like the new doable strategies under the circumstances. And I have my ups and downs with it. Some days are better than others, but I'm trying.
Yeah. So did you sort of glide into your philosophy and your approach for handling this moment in history, or did you really have to uncover it and discover it? Was it natural for you to be so cool about this situation?
Doesn't it already feel like the pandemic has had these different like stages to it, kind of early pandemic, when everyone was making bread, and I don't know. I think now that I have a sense for, like I said, this kind of long haul, I am finally finding my groove. I think there was a lot of flailing around and just struggling with the uncertainty rather than accepting the uncertainty in the kind of early days of the pandemic of thinking like, is this going to be a month? Is this going to be 3 months? And so just being like very future oriented in the early part, whereas now I'm trying to be more focused on the day to day and just like kind of simple basic habits and practices. So I think that shift came gradually and came a little hard, honestly, because I want to, like a lot of people, I want to have some kind of sense of control, and I like to make plans, and I want to know like, here's when I have gigs and here's when these things are happening, and now like I just don't know. And I have finally, I think, come to terms with the uncertainty and the not knowing, and then thinking like, okay, how can I work within this uncertainty? How can I not just put my entire life on hold and wait for some unknown moment in the future, but have a little bit of a sense of momentum and progress? Yeah. So I wouldn't say that I've arrived in a perfect place about it, but I've kind of gone through the ringer and landed in like a slightly better place.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think it's like there's not going to be a day when sort of the light switch is flicked on and you're like, okay, the light's on, everybody, back to normal.
I know I want
We're
that
going
so
to
badly, but it's not gonna happen.
no, we're going to wade into it or sort of rediscover it the way we had to rediscover this. There's not going to be one moment, but
That's a good way
but
to put
so
it.
so what have you been working on inside?
So a few things. I work as an academic advisor and a lecturer at Northwestern University, and that job has gone completely remote. So I spend a lot of time on Zoom talking to undergraduate students who are actually film students. It's a hard time to be a film student.
Yeah.
So that actually kind of helps me as an artist. Like I'm having all these conversations about like how can you stay creative, and as I give students advice, I try to like direct some of it back to myself as I say, like, what can you do right now? Would it be a good time to do some research and do some writing? Yeah, maybe you can't go on set and make a film, but what can you do? And, after saying that, several hundreds of times, it's finally starting to sink into myself. So I'm lucky that I have a job that feeds me in some ways. And it's also a fun distraction to talk to young people and to talk to students. And it keeps me a little bit more connected to the world. It's so easy for me to retreat into myself and to kind of isolate. And my job forces me not to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm spending a lot of time doing advising on Zoom, and I teach a little bit too. I taught a class also online at Story Studio, which is a really cool writing studio in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And so trying to figure out like how to teach, how do I kind of work with a group of people on my little laptop, how to plan writing exercises and projects that work within the constraints that we're all experiencing right now. It kind of keeps me from like isolating too much and just kind of from retreating too far into myself, to try to think of encouraging and inspiring and supporting other people in their creative work. It's really key for me to do that. I need that. So that's been a nice thing that I've been able to continue doing, like a lot of the kinds of academic and teaching work that I do anyway. I've been doing that. So I also, like I said, I've been starting to practice my drums at home, just like I play a few songs every day. And that is one of the most optimistic things I'm doing right now. Like there's something about it that it gives me a kind of energy, because even though I don't know when that future is coming, when I can go and play a gig, I'm sort of acting as if I know that future is coming and that is going to happen. And I want to keep the little muscles in my hands strong and remember the songs that I'm going to be playing, and just keep that part of myself alive in some little way. And it's so small. I guess I feel like I should say this, like when I say I practice my drums every day, like it's like 10 minutes. It's, I'm finding great value in very modest goals and in just carving out these little pieces of time. But there's something about having that continuity, a kind of thread running through the days that is sustaining me right now. And then writing. I'm writing a book, and I just signed a contract for it right before Christmas. So I'm very excited.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
and we
great.
can talk more about that. But so I try to find a little bit of time every day. And again, like sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's half an hour. Sometimes it's just, I take a little time to do a little bit of research and look something up. Or if I'm stressed and tired and overwhelmed by the world, then I'll just do something really simple, like proofread a page or something. Yeah. But again, it's like just having modest goals and trying to have some kind of a sense of daily practice and continuity. It's saving me.
Yeah.
Now.
I think it's interesting sort of understanding the things that you can do in the state that you are in.
Yeah.
Rather than and saying, okay, that was actually a thing, proofreading a page or those things that there's such a difference between doing something and doing nothing.
There's such a huge difference. And I've learned that the hard way too. And I tend to want to have big, ambitious goals and be super productive and just kick some ass. And but learning to be more realistic about my expectations for myself has like been one of the best gifts to myself as an artist, as a human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So welcome again. I want to say that today on the Hannah Judson Beat, Freda Love Smith is our guest. For those of you who are tuning in live, you can add questions, comments to the chat. We'll see them. I've also got some links in the chat for if you want to do some exploring for Freda's Instagram, a book that her first book, Red Velvet Underground. There's a link to the publishing house there, her Twitter, and a few other things. One of the links that I posted is to your current project, The Mysteries of Life. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So The Mysteries of Life was a band that my husband and I formed in 1993, I think, or 1994. It was when I was pregnant with our first child, and we'd kind of left the music business. We'd been touring a lot. We were really tired of it and just feeling like a little bit more domestic and settled. And so we're like, we quit music. But, within weeks, we actually started playing music just in our living room, just like playing really quiet. I was pregnant. I didn't feel like being like a big, loud rock drummer at that time. And so it was kind of this quiet, mellow music. And, we sort of accidentally started a new band in that way. And just this, it very much came from the start of our family. So that band did a couple of records. We ended up kind of, again, it was like accidentally, we got signed to RCA, we got a major record deal. It was just all kind of surreal. And even though that ended up falling apart and the band has been pretty inactive, we'll periodically do some recording and release some music. But it had been a while. It had been years since we'd done anything. And during the summer, this past summer of the pandemic, when we were really pretty locked down, for various reasons, including my father, who was in my bubble, and he has a lot of health problems. And so we were really, really confined. And furthermore, my husband, Jake, had a body of songs, these things that he'd been working on just in his spare time. He'd pick up the guitar and then again, kind of accidentally realized like, well, I've got like 12 songs. Mm-hmm. So we weren't sure if we could do it. We're not very savvy technically. Like we've never been big home recorders. We've always worked with engineers. We've always worked in recording studios. I always liked the idea, like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just make our own record? But we just assumed like we're not adept at that kind of thing. And that's not our thing. But this summer we just thought, well, why not? Like, let's give it a try. And so we actually consulted with a couple of engineer friends. We borrowed a microphone from someone, and we set up in my husband's closet with just like a couple of microphones and a lot of like quilts hanging, and weren't super optimistic that it was going to work out. And then we're very pleasantly surprised that just somehow we got nice sounds and it worked really well. And it was such a pleasant distraction. It was just so nice to have a way to work on music at home. I was really missing playing shows. And, my band Sunshine Boys, which I'll talk about in a minute, we'd released a record on May 1st, which was a sad time. We had all these shows booked, all these plans for it. And like that all obviously like fell through. And so it just felt so nice to be able to kind of like what I've been saying, of thinking of like, okay, what can we do? And it was empowering to just be like, okay, we can just set up with a mic and record songs in the closet. It was so simple, but I'm very happy with how it sounds. Like I really like it. And it's just been nice to have that other place to go, in our heads, and something positive and productive to focus on. And it's finished tracking now. We just finished yesterday with the last track, and it's off to be mixed. But in the meantime, we're releasing some songs. So we released one song called Jupiter and Saturn, which we actually released on if you're into astrology, astronomy, it was kind of hard to avoid that story when there was a conjunction of the planets Jupiter and Saturn that were so close together that they looked like one. And we honestly, a little bit coincidentally, happened to have a song called Jupiter and Saturn. So we released it on the day of the conjunction. Yeah. So that was really fun to feel like there was a little bit of a public interaction again at a time when our access to a public space is so limited. And I see all the artists that I know kind of trying to find some ways to connect and to participate, and to still do music in some way. So it's been really fun. We're releasing the next single on Friday on Bandcamp Friday, this coming week.
Excellent. And so there's a link in the chat, and maybe I'll type it in again just to make sure that we the Mysteries of Life, Bandcamp, Jupiter and Saturn. So that's so cool. So be sure to follow the Mysteries of Life on Bandcamp.
Thank you.
Here it is.
Another fun thing about this record is that, even though we're confined to being home and it's just the two of us, we really quickly figured out that all of our friends have GarageBand on their computers too. And so we were able to send the tracks to my friend and longtime collaborator, Juliana Hatfield, and she sings backing vocals on, 3/4 of the record, because she too is like stuck at home and was happy to have something to work on. And then we sent the tracks to astonishingly talented cello player who's also a good friend of ours, Anna Steinhoff, and she has recorded cello tracks on a lot of the songs, and it really elevates it. And so it's a gift also to still have that feeling of being able to collaborate with other musicians, because it's one of the things I miss the most. And so, yeah, just kind of exploring ways to keep that feeling of collaboration alive.
It's really interesting how much technology has to do right now with our community building and maintaining and collaborating. And definitely, like you mentioned in your project, The Mysteries of Life, you used the word accident a bunch of times. Like, it was an accident, we did this, and then we had another accident, and then but it seems which is definitely a nice way to work. But it seems like you've actually accomplished a great deal with this project. But I really like that you thought that you didn't record yourself, but it turns out you do.
Right.
Those are sort of blocks we have. Like, yeah, this is a thing I definitely don't do. And you have to sort of hurdle over, and you kind of chip away at it until one day you're like, oh, I totally do that now.
Yeah, absolutely. We get so stuck in, what we perceive as our own limitations. But you're right. Like, it's this little incremental chipping away that can make you realize that you're imposing that limitation on yourself, and that it's actually like a thing that you can do. Yeah, that's so important for me, because I definitely, at my age of 53, have a lot of ideas about what I can and can't do. Mm-hmm. And I think, maybe if there's like one, I hate to say silver lining, but just like kind of a noble outcome of the pandemic is that being forced to contend with the constraints that we're all contending with, like, it has yielded some opportunities and some growth and change.
For sure. Definitely. I mean, and I think that you're definitely one of the lucky ones if you can imagine that coming out of this, you will have acquired some good skills, good experiences, because definitely right now, a lot of people aren't feeling that way.
Absolutely. I think
really
that's important to say.
And I think that's
Hannah, I don't know if you can hear me, but your sound is glitching. It's like a record stuck, skipping. Weird. Can you hear me? Weird. Oh, it just stopped. I can't hear you though. I still can't hear you. I can't hear you. The weird sound stopped. Oh, yikes. Let me just play with this. Can you hear me? You can't hear me either. Brats. It looks like your microphone is off, or your sound is off. I'm gonna type.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know what all just sorry about that. Thanks for hanging out, you guys, during during that.
Yay. I'm so glad you're back. I'm so glad we're
Okay,
back.
so my audio is something happened on my side where everything just unclicked and reconfigured itself.
Oh,
But I
weird.
can hear you not through this. I hear you through my computer now.
Oh, okay.
I guess can you hear me?
Yeah, I can totally hear you. Yeah, that's fine.
Check out my headset. Woohoo!
Oh.
All right. Well, thanks. So that was a little technical journey. So that is something. So you know, a couple months ago that would have super stressed me out, but now
Yeah,
not anymore.
I know. Because it's so normal. It's just part of the daily life. It happens in like so many meetings that I'm in, classroom situations, and everyone just rolls with it now. So we've adapted in that way.
Definitely. Yeah, so Zoom is definitely a huge part of my work life now. I
Oh,
mean,
your sound just did really change, and I can barely hear you now.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh,
Yeah.
so funny. It's going through the microphone, but the audio is going through the computer. Anyway,
Go figure.
whatever. So I was already kind of working online before all of this, but everything is sort of amped up in terms of like family calls and keeping in touch with friends, and there is an intensity that goes into this kind of communication, and it is exhausting.
It is. It seems like it can be more draining. It is more draining than in person, communication and talking. Like I have a kind of fatigue at the end of the day that like, oh, this is a different thing, and it's partly my eyes. I mean, our eyes are tired from screens, but I feel like there's more to it. Like it's just a different kind of exchange that seems to sap your energy after a while. I'm super grateful to have it, and
Yeah.
it's certainly better than nothing, but it's not the same.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure there's a lot of science to back this up. I have no idea what the science is, but there really is like a digital extraction. There is something
Yeah,
that but when you're talking to somebody face to face, it's a different energy exchange. I guess it also depends on whether it's a good exchange or a bad exchange,
of course.
but
Yeah,
it
but
is
there
but
is
it's
a
definitely
difference.
like physically and in your brain and everything. It's a different thing.
Yeah, I really experience that every day. And so it's like you kind of need more time to rest and more time to recover. And just sometimes I feel like I'm just slower when it comes to like, okay, I'm done with work and I have time now to work on my writing, work on other things. Um, I'm just a little bit slower. Like I just need to give myself some time. It feels like, yeah, my energy tends to be a little bit more drained, and on top of it, it's also, especially this month, but I mean, in the past 4 years, just like the exhaustion of the political situation, it reached such a peak this month. Is it still
Yeah.
January? Yeah, it is. It's been January for so long.
Yeah.
And so that also like really slows me down and kind of limits how productive I can be. And I just have to give myself like a lot of patience and empathy about, I'm not going to be like as super productive because there's so much competing for my attention and energy on top of all of the other accommodations we've had to make for the pandemic. So it's a lot for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the lucky ones too, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you like have any systems for noting when you have accomplished something? Like, do you write it down, or do you put up a Post-it note, or do you give yourself like little like, thumbs up, or do you check things off a list? Do you have a system?
I love lists. Yeah, I love lists, and I've become more dependent on lists. Like my lists have gotten much more granular than they used to be. The lists used to be kind of more big things. Now I'll even put like take vitamins, like floss teeth on my list. But I also put, like work on chapter 8 or set up this interview with a person that is part of my research. So I write everything down now. And then I have to admit, I love the satisfaction of the tick. Like, it's very satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And I use paper, like I use a paper journal, because I wanted the gesture of doing the tick is part of the satisfaction for me.
Yeah, definitely. Are you a Virgo?
Yes.
No way. When is your birthday? I am a Virgo.
Get out.
I'm very list oriented, and I've always been told that that's like a Virgo trait, to be that kind of organized. What's your birthday?
September 3rd.
Mine is September 8th.
Oh, right.
I have many September 3rd birthday friends, so welcome to them.
Yeah, we like ticking things off.
Yeah.
We like making lists. It's really, and it's become not just satisfying and helpful for me, but it's like become kind of necessary. And even still, I've been forgetting a lot more things, or I've been more disorganized than I ever have in my, kind of adult life. A couple of times lately, I forgot I had a meeting, which is, really so upsetting to a Virgo. It's just like, what? I don't like to be late. I really don't like being late. So I'm actually upping my game on writing things down, just because it was so horrific to me to have these incidences where I just completely forgot to go to something, or I was really late to something, even though I didn't physically have to even go anywhere. So that was even more upsetting to me, that I could be late to something that really I just had to click on my computer.
But I think that that's part of the digital extraction, so part of my daily process, when I sit down, I look at my lists, I organize my lists, I do all my list work, but I also on my phone put alarms for everything, because otherwise, because time is passing differently inside day after day. The days are differentiated.
I think that is what's messing me up the most, is that lack of differentiation, the way that the days kind of blur together. And sometimes I'll be doing something really simple that's a daily practice, like taking my vitamins, and I'll be like, oh wait, did I already do this? Just because the sameness is kind of, I'm losing my bearings in kind of time, and in the course of a day and a week and a month. And sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I just really have to kind of reconstruct the timeline and think really hard, what month is it? What day is it? So sometimes the disorientation has been extreme lately. And so, having the daily calendar, the physical list, and the reminders on my computer, I really need more of those markers to help keep me oriented. It's really weird.
That is something that I haven't spoken to anybody about or really read anything about it yet, but I'm sure it's going to come up as a topic. But the disorientation of daily life during the pandemic is very clear. I didn't become aware of it until late November, December, where the thing that always got me through the holiday season was all of the celebrations, the tick, 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 tick from every tick, 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 tick. And then you were off to mid-January and you were done. So I would be deposited mid-January, ready to shed a few pounds from all the but we didn't have any of them. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm disoriented.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great example of a thing that I haven't thought about, because it's this kind of transparent thing, but just how important those rituals are, and how much they orient us to, to the year and to our lives. But you don't notice it until it's gone. And then it's just this groundless kind of feeling.
Yeah, I was at my job. They brought in a woman to lead us through a meditation a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was really interesting. It was something we'd never done before, but it was a very interesting person and conversation. And I think that they were real. It's just sort of people experimenting with different ways to work, things that work. But this woman at the end of the meditation, she said a little prayer about how we are all here together and we all are walking each other home. Brought tears to my eyes, because that I'm kind of missing that. Like
Yeah.
that thing of like going through the seasons with each other, the plans that you make with each other. Like, I'm doing a lot of work now, but we're going to get together this summer. It's like, we're not. We're not
No.
going to get together this summer, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's intense, and it can feel bleak, and overwhelming. Um, yeah, and we are all like it's a very collective experience, and we don't even really know like what we're going through exactly. We don't. We'll know later when we're able to kind of look back on it, but this is a big thing that we're all going through.
Yeah. So you've done such a great job at sort of arriving at a place of micro successes and also some plain macro successes from releasing a record, um, at putting it together yourself and doing and engineering it yourself, or partially yourself, and also your book deal that just came through. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book, or can you?
Yeah, I'll try. I feel like I haven't, sorted out my talking points about it. So it'll be very fresh and raw, but that'll be fun. And it is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And honestly, it was like the fact that I really couldn't do anything all summer. Speaking of summers, like last summer, that I finally wrote the proposal, just because it's like, well, I can't go out, I can't leave the house. So I'm finally going to do this thing. But many years ago, I became interested in a woman named Angela De Angelis. I'm from Bloomington, Indiana. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to college. And this woman, Angela, everyone called her Angel. She went to IU. She was from New Jersey, but she went to IU in the late 60s and lived in Bloomington a little bit after that into the early 70s, and then moved to California. Became very radicalized at IU, like a lot of people did at the time. She was there in 1968, which was probably the most radical year in a lot of places, but at the IU college campus, it was a very active, really powerful time. So she got very caught up in that and moved to Berkeley, which was really where that was really just the heart of radical politics at the time. She ended up being a founding member of the Symbionese Liberation Army, who kidnapped Patty Hearst, and she was instrumental in the Hearst kidnapping. She was very directly involved in the kidnapping act, as well as in what kind of ended up being maybe indoctrination or recruitment of Patty Hearst into the SLA. So Angela was really involved in that, and she just has not been written about. She because the Patty Hearst story is what compels people so strongly, which is it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
But because of the focus on Hearst, Angel's story really hasn't been told. And I've always been interested in her ever since I saw a photo of her, which actually there used to be this photo of her in the Indiana University Memorial Union, where I spent a lot of time as a kid. And my mom actually worked there in that building, which is where the IU Alumni Magazine was based, and she was the editor. And so I used to see this photo, and then the photo kind of resurfaced in my life. So it's been kind of a strange process of just being fascinated with a person and not completely understanding why, but finally following it through and just finding all kinds of like very, very interesting things about her life. She played music at IU in a band with Jane Pauley, the newscaster. She started a guerrilla theater group also in Bloomington with Kevin Kline. They worked together to start this radical theater group, and it was political. Like people would burn their draft cards after performances, and very much of the time. Mm-hmm. And she kind of continued to kind of spiral in circles with all of these interesting, notable people. But she, again, is just a person that history hasn't looked at, and I want to. And I think her story of radicalization feels resonant right now. Someone who was head cheerleader at her high school and star of all the school musicals and sorority girl when she, at first at Indiana University, but then factors changed her, circumstances changed her, and she became someone who was ready to and did pick up a gun and fight, who was willing to kill and who was willing to die for her cause. And it's an incredible transformation. And people who knew her, who knew her when she was younger, just like, I don't know how that happened. Like, I don't recognize that person.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of that going on right now, or at any rate, like I say, it just feels resonant. So I'm writing a biography of Angela de Angelis. Her name means Angel of the Angels.
Uh-huh.
And that's the title of the book.
Wow. So how interesting that she was always in your field of vision.
Yeah.
And then she crystallized in this moment.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like she's kind of always been there. And I've had dreams about her and just feel a kind of a connection to her. Like I not that I identify with her, but I care about her.
Yeah.
She died when she was 25 years old in the first televised shootout in history. And
wow.
And I want to tell her story. Like I said, this is all a little raw and clunky. So thanks for letting me talk it through.
Well, that's so interesting. You're going to have a really interesting time writing that, and uncovering, probably you're going to be the first to thread some of these things together. It sounds like that's really interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel really good about it. I'm going to be working on it for a couple of years. There's a lot of research to do, a lot of people I want to talk to, and I want to take my time with it as well. So the year 2024 is the 50th anniversary of the Hearst kidnapping and of the SLA actions. And so I hope to have it out that year so it can be part of the conversation.
Neat. So do you think her story wasn't told because she was a woman, or is it just because other stories were more interesting or something?
I think both. I think that a lot of the problem was just the star of Patricia Hearst, of this very wealthy, powerful person, overshadows the story of the other people involved. But the few bits of press that I have found about Angela were dismissive and condescending in a way that offended me, with headlines like "cheerleader for a revolution," things like that, just dismissing her, questioning her commitment, her real commitment to radical cause, and presenting her as being a kind of shallow person without much agency.
Yeah. Right.
And so there's a lot of sexism baked into those assumptions, and it bugs me. It's one of the main reasons I wanted to write this book. And here's a weird thing. So the one kind of syndicated article that was written about her after her death was written by, what's his name, Michael Wolff. He wrote an expose of the Trump White House that became like an instant bestseller. And he was like immediately accused of some questionable journalistic strategies and tactics, and also some sexism. So yeah, it's interesting that even the person who kind of became her only biographer, just in this one article for the New York Times Magazine, even he was dismissive of her, even though he was writing this piece about her and her life and her choices. So I feel like there's a kind of a correction that I hope to make. And I think that fortunately there's more of that going on. I mean, I'm not a historian. It's kind of fun to be so out of my depth in this. Like, I love the challenge of that. It's like a bigger version of we don't know how to use recording equipment, we can't record at home. But I do read, history and biography, and there are a lot of these kinds of feminist corrections going on that feel overdue. And so even though, like I said, I'm not a historian, I don't like place this book with those, but it's inspired by that trend in history to look at like the people whose stories didn't get told.
Yeah.
It's usually women, it's, or poor people, Black people. I mean, it's time to broaden the archive.
I love that. I think we should make T-shirts that say that it's time to broaden the archive.
Right.
It is that is so true. That is it's just so interesting when you look through, history books and you're like, okay, this is one way you could have gotten through that period of time. This is one telling of this. But yeah, women's stories don't rarely get told. They get sort of a few people get sort of pulled and lifted up as an example. See, women are involved in history, but I think that there are many women who have made change and have been active in radical movements whose stories never came and maybe never will be told because people just don't know. But it's just the way it's been done so far. I think it's really important work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to do my best. I do, like I say, I really care about it. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah. So, so you've got your hands full in ways. So you've got a record release that you're working on, and then you've got your book that you have to write in 2 years.
Exactly. In 2 years.
So that's like one chapter every 2.5 months or something like that.
Thank you. That's helpful. Yeah, that's less overwhelming. Yeah.
And are you baking or cooking, anything like that?
Not yes, at home very much. I haven't been writing about food much lately. That was really my thing for a long time. Like I really loved being a food writer, and who knows, like maybe I'll do that again sometime. But yeah, cooking and baking are really helping to ground me. And like many people have turned to that during the pandemic, and I'm not sick of it. Like I'll tell you one thing that I really love, that really makes me almost wish I could just keep working from home as far as like my day job goes. I love having lunch at home. Like that still feels like this kind of special treat. Just because, I have a 9-to-5 job and, normally I would just go grab a sandwich with a friend or something like that. But there's something about like having lunch at home that makes me feel like I'm playing hooky from school or something, or like getting away with something, or like a sick day when you're a kid, when you're not too sick, but like just sick enough to be home and it's actually kind of fun and you get to eat whatever, your mom gets you, some cans of soup. I can't like articulate super well. I'll have to like keep thinking about it, but I really love like having lunch at home and having lunch be like a little bit more of a special meal sometimes.
Yeah.
That's been really fun. And I did make a pie this week. That's not something that I normally do, but I was like, hey, I got time. Like I'll make a pie, or sometimes I'll like do some like a long project, like roast some vegetables that I can just like go put them in the oven and then I can like do my job. And there are things like that have been really, really nice about being home more and working from home more.
What kind of pie did you make?
I made an apple pear pie.
Oh, wow.
It turned out really nice. We get a box of vegetables and fruit delivered every week. And so I'm just like, I got a lot of apples and pears.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. We did, when we lived in Chicago, we also had a delivery from Indiana. I think it was a farm in Indiana that we, but those boxes are fun because you do have to do something. They require action.
Yeah. There's actually something in my box that I don't know what it is. That I'm trying to figure out I was going to post it on social media or just try to figure out what it is. I don't know what it is and I don't know what to do with it, but I love that. Like, that's really fun. And
what color is it?
It's purple.
Is it a beet?
It's not a beet. It's not a beet. It's purple, but it's like a really kind of a rough exterior. It's beautiful, but I have no idea.
It's a root vegetable.
Yeah, it's a root vegetable.
We used to get here in France, we used to get these black beets. Black, and we got so many of them. It was obviously an abundance and easy to grow, but they were really awful.
Oh, no.
Come back with these boxes of these. But I'm wondering if it's some kind of beetroot, or not beet. Maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. Radish.
Oh,
it's black radishes. That's what we used to get.
Oh. Yeah, it looks a little bit radishy, but it's like big. It's like a baby's head, like a very small baby. Yeah, I don't know if I'd like just need to slice into it and figure it out what it is. But like we were saying, when the days are so, similar, so much the same. Like that's one of the little things that helps bring some variety into my life, that this box of vegetables and fruit shows up and then I have to figure out what to do with it. And that helps me not fall too much into cooking ruts of just like making the same thing over and over and over again. So that's like a nice, fun, lively thing. I like get excited about Friday when the vegetable and fruit box comes.
So do you make your own recipes or do you follow them?
Both. I'm a recipe follower, but then as soon as I start following it, I tend to improvise a little bit. So yeah, I've been using the New York Times cooking app a lot because it's like just really easy and convenient, and it's really, really good. I have a few cookbooks that I like. I like Samin Nosrat's cookbook a lot. I like Melissa Clark's recipes a lot. I rarely work without a recipe unless I'm just making something super basic. Like I'm going to make a butternut squash soup later today, and I'm just going to keep it incredibly simple. Like sometimes I just like to have like, this is a very French thing, just like very few ingredients, like just really good salt and a really good butternut squash and, a little bit of broth. Yeah. So
in the chat, there's a question. Vicky
Yes.
says rutabaga. Is your thing a rutabaga, the baby's head?
Oh, maybe it is a rutabaga. Should I go get it?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk amongst yourselves.
All right, you guys. So thank you so much for joining. Those of you who are here. Hi, Alan. Hi, Didier. Hi, Dee and Vicky and everybody else. Alan and Andre for coming. It's really nice to see you all here. So I'm with Freda Love Smith today. We're chatting about all sorts of things. You can tell she's super interesting. And that is what?
Wait, there.
Does it have a stem?
It does. Wait.
Yeah.
There's the stem, like a pumpkin. Look at how pretty it is, though.
It is super pretty. So do you think that grew underground or on the ground?
It could have been like on a vine, actually. Maybe. Like it seems viney.
So you guys, what do you please write in the chat? We'll give you what kind of contest can we put together right now if you can guess what it is, except of course we have no way of verifying because we don't know what it is. So.
Yeah. If you can guess what it is, like I'll figure out what to cook with it and I'll send you my recipe.
So all right.
When the Sunshine Boys, when we did we did an Indiegogo to fund our record Work and Love, which came out May 1st of 2020. But one of the, how you have to have like different pledge items that for people when you do that kind of crowdfunding. One of ours was Sunshine Boys will come to your house and cook you a vegan dinner. Our bass player is strictly vegan, and I'm not, but I'm mostly plant-based diet. We'll come to your house, we'll cook you a vegan dinner, and then we'll play a concert for you. And we never had any takers on it, but I was always hoping that we would have someone who would take us up on that, because it's just like a beautiful way to combine my love of food and music. That's kind of been my thing.
So how much, what level of donation was that?
It was, we made it kind of expensive because it was like a house concert. So I can't remember if it was like $2,000 or something like that. But it was also like, we will bring the groceries, we'll cook for you. You can invite some friends. So it wasn't just for like one person.
It was going to be an event. Yeah.
It was going to be an event. So it was like priced a little bit high, but it wasn't insane. But yeah, we didn't have any takers.
So did you have a radius attached to it, like within 100 miles? Or
I think so. I think there was like a radius around the city of Chicago, because we all live like in or around Chicago. So yeah, I mean, if anybody out there wants to like reach out to me, it's not too late. We'll still come when it's safe to do so. We'll still come cook dinner for you and play music for you.
Yeah, I think that is actually a really great service. It's something or offering, not just a one-off. So Vicky says,
yes,
kohlrabi.
Kohlrabi. Okay, so what is kohlrabi? I mean, I feel like I've maybe had that in a restaurant, like just kind of crudité, like just kind of slice it up raw. Is that what you would do with it, Vicky? Wow, kohlrabi.
It's beautiful. That's definitely something to research.
I learned something today. This is great.
It's good. So Dee Dee says cabbage. Is
It's
it
not, I don't think it's cabbage. I mean, I'll know when I cut into it, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It seems like it's like in the cabbage family though, which maybe kohlrabi is.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to look that up.
For sure.
Awesome. So are you going to know what that is before you cut into it? Or are you just going to cut into it and start working with it anyway?
I think that I want to know first if I can.
That's organized. So Vicky says, I've never made it, but I've heard of people making kohlrabi fries.
Oh, that sounds good. Maybe with the butternut squash soup, maybe a little side of kohlrabi fries.
Oh, I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
I will when I have you over, when I have the Sunshine Boys over for me and my friends, maybe that will be on the menu.
Yeah, you got it.
Excellent. So today's the last day of January. I'm pretty sure it's the last. Let's see.
What a long month it's
first. How many more days can there be in the month?
Right.
Are there more? But so it's the last day of what has been a long month, and we've got some more long months in front of us. And you sound like you're in pretty great shape to work your way through them. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what comes next, what you do next, and hearing your book, listening to your record. You guys, I'm going to post again just so it's up front. There's a bunch of websites where you can learn more about Freda's projects, and you can follow her. And so there are the websites in the comments area.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think oops. Oh, yeah, I think they've gone through. And so do you have anything you want to talk about, or any questions for me, or anything any final thoughts? Because I have a final thought for you, if you don't.
You go first.
Well, my final thought is a question. I just wanted to ask you, because this is something that I think about from time to time, and I think it's a question, but what do you think, what is your superpower?
Okay, well, two things came to mind. And the first thing, I think, just because we were just talking about food so much, this is going to sound like a very mundane superpower, but I've told a lot of friends this is my superpower. So I'm really good at reading recipes. Like I'm really good at just like looking at a recipe and somehow I can kind of taste it and imagine it. And I don't really know why I have that superpower, but I'm a really, really good recipe reader. And actually that has come in handy during the pandemic. So it's like somewhat relevant. But I think kind of speaking more broadly to myself, like as a person, as an artist, I'm pretty optimistic, and like that has served me well. So I don't think I'm Pollyannish. I don't think I'm unrealistic, but I'm like pretty relentlessly looking for the bright side of things, like for myself and for people I work with. And that might be a thing that like working with students has strengthened in me, because it's not just about me. It's like, it's about me wanting young people to have some sense of hope and like some belief in the future. And so I think in trying to foster that and encourage that, it's like grown a little bit stronger in me. And it's challenging some days to maintain any sense of optimism. And again, I don't think it's an unrealistic optimism, because I believe that there are challenges, many challenges, and a lot of change that needs to happen, a lot of fighting that we all need to do, and all of that. But it's almost like separate from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that feels like a superpower right now.
That's lovely. I love that. Optimism is something I think about also. And on my Instagram thing, I was like, how do I describe myself on Instagram? And the first thing I put was optimist.
Oh, good.
And I think that definitely it has nothing to do with being fake hopeful or being cheery when things are not cheery. I think it's you can be optimistic and realistic at the same time. But I think it's definitely important to see clearly options so that you can go towards them, as opposed to just being like, oh, and down you go,
Yeah,
it's
I think that's exactly
it's a
right.
game
It's like
changer. Yeah.
it keeps you carrying on, and it keeps you working hard. And I mean, I'm just all about work, but if I wasn't optimistic, it would be really hard to find the energy to work.
Yeah, exactly. That I feel that also. It would be hard to keep working on things that are important to you if you don't see them mattering, if you don't think they matter, if you don't think they're going somewhere. What's the point?
That's a
Yeah.
really good way to put it. Spoken like a fellow Virgo optimist.
Yeah, well, so it was nice to make a connection with you today and to learn that you are also a list-making Virgo, and that's like the least of your excellent qualities. You have many, many wonderful qualities, and it was really fun today to talk a little bit about them. So
Thank you.
thank you for sharing all of that. Hopefully, you will be a guest again on the Hannah Judson Beat, as we optimistically move towards new chapters
Yes.
historically.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was really fun, Hannah.
Excellent. Thanks. You guys, thank you for coming. Andre, Alan, everybody else who was here today. Thanks for joining us on our mystery vegetable segment of the show. I think that's something to repeat. So,
Absolutely.
excellent. So I hope that you guys all have wonderful days out there and listen to a lot of music and have optimistic thoughts. See you all next week.